Hello, hi, welcome to LUCA Talks. My name is Jenny Whelan. I work in Telefonica and specifically in LUCA, which is Telefonica's data unit. And today I'm going to be talking to you about RCS and its impact for business messaging. So I'm really delighted to get to present this to you today. It's a project that we've been working on in Telefonica for the last 2 years within LUCA from the commercial side. And also with a lot of help from colleagues across the business in the device unit and the global CTIO, the technology unit. So great opportunity to take you through our view of the world, and I guess some of it's more my own view. I also want to share with you, before speaking specifically on RCS, a little bit more about the messaging space in general, its impact on business messaging specifically, which is where we'll talk about RCS and Telefonica's role in RCS and the role of the carriers. So I'm going to take you through some slides. We will take some questions at the end of today's webinar, and I hope we get a chance to go through your questions. Okay. Great. So today we're going to talk about RCS for business messaging. I think this is a really exciting space to be in at the minute, as we'll get onto RCS in more detail in a little bit. But just firstly, to take some time back and stand back and talk more generally about messaging. So messaging over the last 10 years has seen a huge disruption. We, as consumers, have seen the adoption of all these new messaging apps, and in some cases even platforms now, as we see with WeChat, which is huge in China. I'll come on to it in a few minutes. WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, WeChat, this listing and this graph that I'm showing here are the ranking. These are the top downloaded messaging apps, as we can see if you go to any of the key app stores. So the reality is, if you look at the top two, WhatsApp and Facebook, that's nearly 3 billion daily active users. So that's nearly half the population of the planet is using these type of messaging apps. So it's huge. They're really, really proliferated, huge penetration. We're seeing it in 2018 across all these types of platforms, these instant messaging platforms. We've seen over 72 trillion messages sent in 2018. So it's huge traffic and huge relevance and a big change to the way we communicate with each other. In the US, for example, in 2019, so earlier this year, a study was done, and they found that even 11 minutes on average is what a normal person is spending using their messaging apps. And that number will continue to grow, as obviously more smartphone penetration leads to higher usage of these messaging apps, and then more screen time specifically within the messaging app space. I mean, as consumers ourselves or as users, we know that we're all spending more time within these apps. Facebook also did an interesting piece of research generally across the market as well about messaging, and where it found that 67% of people say they're using messaging a lot more, that 67% of people say their messaging has increased over the last 2 years. 80% of adults are using messaging daily, and 51% of people indicate that messaging has replaced other forms of communication for them. So before, where you maybe used email or even took out the old pen and paper, that's all gone now that we move on to this type of messaging. This slide as well also shows the importance of so this is this growth in the use of the messaging apps, the black columns. And then as I mentioned earlier, the more smartphones we have, the more these messaging apps exist, and so the higher the usage. So the growth of smartphone penetration also proliferates the growth of these messaging apps. But it's also quite interesting because we don't all have the same use, or not every country has the same usage of the key apps. So we're based in Spain. You're obviously emitting from Spain at the moment. WhatsApp has huge penetration here. But then if you go to the US, you have Facebook Messenger is still the most relevant app. Even though all these apps are downloadable from the app stores, there tends to be a market preference per different countries. So we can see this. And then you'll see this orange color for WeChat over in China. So I'll talk a little bit more about that now. So WeChat is an interesting one. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of WeChat already, but in the messaging space, it's probably one of the most innovative outlier type players at the moment, and has actually been for the last 10 years. WeChat started out as a messaging app and has really become a platform player where all types of services, as we can see in this timeline, stickers, payments, e-commerce, taxis, all these kind of really cool services now are integrated within that one app. So, I mean, WeChat is really important because, as I say, it's not just an app, it's now more like a platform. It's a beacon to a lot of the rest of us that are moving into messaging space. It also has a little bit of the WeChat is huge in China, as we saw in our previous, the previous map, with over 1 billion users. It's also the China effect. It hasn't yet gone to, although WeChat has great intention to internationalize the experience, it's still quite China local at the moment. But it's interesting because it's really like a WhatsApp, Facebook, Twitter, Flickr group on Tinder, Instagram, all in one place where you can do, as it shows here, like hail a cab, book a restaurant, pay in convenience stores, pay utility bills, and all these kind of experiences within the one app are called what they call mini programs, which are like apps within an app. So WeChat is interesting, just to flag it there as an interesting space in the messaging space. A few other quick trends to also flag in messaging. Some of you might have seen Mark Zuckerberg's, obviously Facebook has had over the last few years, so Facebook obviously a huge platform and has obviously Messenger, which has a huge following and usage of Messenger, as we saw in the map before. But also they've had some challenges, Facebook as a company, over the last few years. We're all aware of the Cambridge Analytica situation and lots of other challenges the platform has actually had. Off the back of which, earlier this year and through last year as well, Mark Zuckerberg and his team of executives have been a lot more forthcoming with their strategy on messaging in particular, where they have stood up, and this is a quote from Mark himself, where he says, "Today we already see that private messaging, ephemeral stories and small groups are by far the fastest growing area of online communication." So we're starting to see, 10 years ago, we started off with certain kinds of platforms, even Facebook, which is a kind of a marketplace, public posting type environment. And now there's this need for this more one-to-one private messaging or smaller group messaging, and the ephemeral stories like the Snapchats of the world, and then these kind of smaller groups. So there's definitely some trends starting to arise. And if you think about what I said previously about WeChat operates similar to the way Facebook wants to move forward with messaging. So 2 or 3 other quick points on trends, just generally in messaging. Encryption is a big topic, privacy. I think we're all becoming a lot more aware of our data, how it's used, which messaging channels. So then bringing that down particularly to messaging, which of the messaging apps and services that are out there, which ones have encryption, which ones aren't encrypted. And so it's a big topic, and you can see WhatsApp here, end-to-end encryption, that's full extreme-to-extreme encryption, and some other ones that don't have like Skype. I mean, sometimes with this kind of stuff as well, and obviously WeChat, more for political reasons, does not have full end-to-end encryption. So that's another trend. And in any of these messaging apps, as a user as well yourself, you might often ask which app do I want to go with based on my privacy requirements. Interoperable, how the apps actually speak to each other. This is something we'll start to see in the future, as people get tired of thinking, oh, my friend is on WhatsApp and the other one's on Skype and the other one's on Viber. Ideally, we'd all be able to just communicate with each other with the same standards. And ephemeral, so this thing of where you will have messages that self-destruct after a period of time, also linked to the privacy debate. So yeah, just a few trends. What the interesting thing with all that then is, and maybe I'll just go back before I go on to the, so we've seen some really interesting trends, and so then this affects the whole way that as end consumers, the way we want to interact person to person and also with businesses. So we want our conversations with businesses to be similar like we would if we were having a private conversation, like in the way that we want it to be fast, we want it to be reliable, we want it to be easy, and we just want accessible, and we want that conversation to be able to happen 24 hours. So then we roll on that type of demands that we have as consumers to businesses, and then we actually see is that all these, that's WeChat up here on the left, and then WhatsApp in the middle, and then Apple moving towards the right, and Facebook even further to the right. They've all now prepared a business proposition where, as a brand, be it Santander or at Movistar or as a brand ourselves, that you can communicate with your customers using these instant messaging channels. So we're starting to see some big movement. I think it's taken some time. You've had WhatsApp has been out there, 7-8 years, maybe more. And then over the last 2-3 years, we're starting to see how that same channel has been adapted for the business messaging space, which is really positive because it needs to evolve. And what's also making this possible is chatbots, right? So within each brand, like take the example here that we have this nice picture here of WhatsApp for Business. This is where Sandra's Cakes. This is a small, a local shop that sells cakes. She can set up her profile on WhatsApp for Business, upload her customer base, and then communicate with them. She can either reply automatically or could have some chatbot features, which Apple also uses, and Facebook. So how then does all this move on then to carrier world? So obviously I'm speaking from Telefonica. We've looked at the outside context of messaging generally and how these messaging players have disrupted the messaging experience, and now they are also moving into the messaging space. But what does that actually mean for the carriers like a Telefonica or a Vodafone or an EE or any of the other carriers that are out there? So if we look at this picture, at this graph, we see along the bottom, and the numbers are slightly outdated, but the trend is still there. It doesn't really matter. We have this huge adoption of the WhatsApp and the Facebook and the WeChat, which is similar to the slides I showed at the beginning. But we actually see that SMS and MMS, the typical, what we all have and know for the last 20 years, has a much higher reach than the others. So as carriers, we haven't yet evolved our communication channel to be like a WeChat or even a WhatsApp, but we're starting off on a good grounding in that we have an existing channel that people use quite a lot with huge penetration. So this is then where RCS comes in. We look at what the channel we have as a carrier today. We have SMS, which is this picture here to the left. It's it's not particularly, it's only 160 characters. It's a bit old. It's over 20 years old at this stage. But on a positive note, it has currently it has a 98% open rate, a 90-second response time, really powerful anti-spam measures, and it's ubiquitous. You don't have to download anything. It just comes with your phone and it just works, and it's trusted by big brands, particularly banks, governments, and any other kind of utility companies, because it's tried and tested. So we see that it has really great reach, but in fairness, it does really need an upgrade. So this is where RCS comes in. RCS is the upgrade of the SMS channel. I want to show you what it looks like more directly and more visually in a short little video that I'm going to play for you now. Bear with me one second. So that was just a quick view of what the RCS experience will be like. You can see it has a peer-to-peer experience, like when I speak to you, a friend, we're messaging between each other. It has all those cool, nice things and features like a WhatsApp or others have, where you can share your location, you get your read receipts, you can send images, gifts, all those kind of fun things. But also you would have noticed from the video the 8P. 8P for us is business messaging. It's application to peer business messaging, where you saw the Bonjour Rail example, where the train can send you that QR code. And then you straight away have it in your phone without having to download a Bonjour Trail app, right? So that's what the thinking is, but you might have noticed that it very much has a Google look and feel to it. Now, Google is a really important player to getting RCS up and running. And how this will work is you will have within your new Android devices, you will have an Android message app that will be native on your app. So that means that you don't have to do anything. Ideally, you just receive your new phone and you get an Android message app was already pre-installed. And when you go into that Android message app for the first time, if RCS is enabled in your country, you will straight away have this RCS type experience to speak with friends, and even if friends can communicate to you via RCS. So as I say, Google is an important player because Google has been instrumental in making RCS to take off over the last years. They give the client, which is the actual icon, the messaging app. They also are a vendor, a provider for the full RCS engineering piece that needs to go behind. And they also provide hub connection for the operators to interconnect with each other. So they're really important, and we all work really closely together to get RCS up and running. Okay. Great. So what does it look like in terms of user experience? Obviously, you've seen is the video, but if we look here to the right-hand side, we see the new features that RCS brings us in comparison to SMS. We get this sender brand, or this brand verification. If you can see on the DHL example, actually, there's a little small tick up at the top. That means that the brand that is communicating to you as an end user has been verified. They've been verified that they're a real company, and that there's certain metrics that they have to be verified across, and that their bot, the bot that will actually speak to you as an end user, works correctly. This is really important to reduce spam and make sure that the channel of RCS stays clean and high quality. We've got read receipts, rich cards. Rich cards are essentially, they are just, it's like an MMS looks, it's got visuals basically. It's got images in it, multimedia. And another word that's used quite a lot in RCS is carousels. So that means that you can scroll across images to maybe select a menu, or to select from a series of different options. So that's really cool as well in RCS. And these are some interesting use cases in these four screens. You can see with similar, the first one, travel, we can definitely see that RCS is really going to be really helpful to brands that you want to get your boarding pass out. So let's say trains, airplanes, flights. I mean, a lot of the airline companies are researching a lot about RCS already. Because rather than having to download your Iberia or British Airways app, you will now also be able to use your one native channel of RCS, which will hopefully make life a lot easier as in consumers. Banking, typical things like checking your balance, and then the next one, marketing. So because it's going to be more visual, a visual channel over SMS, it's going to allow a lot more interaction and much more positive engagement with a brand, because you'll be able to see better images as well. And then really useful, this DHL use case is a really helpful one as well, because it's showing you're able to track your package. And there's a really nice another use case, I haven't shown it here, I think it's with British Gas. So imagine you have the installer is coming to fix something on your boiler. You can actually, it sends a picture of the person that will actually come to your house. So it's going to have all these really nice use cases for security reasons as well. That will be a real upgrade. Again, some other really nice use cases, banking, because you can share location. You'll be able to see the closest ATMs. It has these buttons, quick search buttons down here at the bottom of the screen, so you can select yes, no, that kind of whole enriched bot experience. Retail, again, because it's going to be a lot more visual, you'll be able to show the offers rather than just being like an SMS at the moment. What we do is it's literally just a link to go to the brand's website, which isn't really, it really isn't, it's okay, but it's RCS is going to be much better. And again, travel. So lots of really nice use cases that we can see already. And we've already got lots of results. I mean, there's lots of brands already trialing this channel. We can see Subway is a big advocate of RCS. They speak quite vocally about it in MWC and at all capacity, all the major marketing channels and events as well. So this is a really nice study where they compare an SMS that they send out of an offer deal for one of their sandwiches, and then they do a similar type. They do a similar one, but with all the visuals and nice things that RCS offers. You can see at the top the little tick with the verified brand, and obviously then the nice visuals. And so what they found with that was that with their meal deal offer, which was what they were comparing the two, that they had a much higher conversion rate with RCS than they had over SMS. So, I mean, we're not concerned. This is definitely going to add value for brands. It's just a matter of time. So key points to be aware of in relation to RCS, just briefly, RCS runs over IP, so it's like your WhatsApp or Instagram runs over your data package as end users. But the beauty of RCS actually has a fallback to SMS. So if a brand, take a Santander, wants to send out an RCS message to, upgrade to the next loan or whatever, if that message can't be transmitted from Santander out to the end customer, it could always be downgraded, let's say, to an SMS and fall back it to a link or go to a website or a contact number. So that is useful. It's native. So native means it comes, the RCS client or your Android message app or Samsung message app, in the case of a Samsung phone, comes naturally on your device. You shouldn't really have to do anything. It should just be there, and it's a whole seamless experience. It's currently on Android devices, and the big kind of elephant in the room is when will it be on Apple? But that's work in progress. It has interesting commercial models between those that will sell it. Who will sell this channel is like the telcos, like ourselves at Telefonica, but also the aggregators and other usual players in the messaging space. And then we're still trying to figure out all the mechanisms and principles, but there's some base standards that we'll start with and that will grow. It's also expected that you will be able to, that all this will be integrated then with the wider internet ecosystem. So when you would be on Google Maps, you would be able to complete your conversation with IKEA or the local flower shop within an RCS environment. So you would move from messages into your Android message client. Telefonica specifically, we're really excited that we are now live in 2 countries, Brazil and Mexico, and with the UK, Spain and Germany to go live for Q4. So we're on the flight path to get these 3 countries live. RCS is a GSMA standard, which means that a group of people from operators, Google and the mobile manufacturers have gotten together to agree on what are the best standards that a messaging app should have. As we move from SMS volumes over to engagement-based metrics. So that's the cool thing with RCS as well. It's going to change the messaging, the traditional telco messaging landscape, to be a lot more closer to the advertising marketing field. So it'll take some time to make that transition, but we think it's going to be a worth it, useful channel. And we can see already some really good traction. Operators, 60 networks live in 42 countries. I think really, really quickly, these are a few of the players that you'll need to bear in mind when you're thinking about RCS. And we start over here on the left. You have the brands. We know who they are. those guys have to connect their chatbot into what's called MAP. MAP is something, and when you talk about RCS, it's kind of the nuts and bolts. MAP is your messaging as a platform. So it means that brand plugs their bot into the MAP. That map then connects it onto a hub. So this is kind of just how the whole ecosystem works. The hub allows the messages to transfer, and then it shoots the message into a Telefonica RCS server or into a Vodafone server, and then it gets out to us, the customer, at the very end through these two different clients. Okay, so these are just some of the players. Lots of different people involved to get this up and running, as you can see. But we do have progress. We see that Japan is now live over here in the yellow to the right-hand side. And as I say, what constitutes a real live launch in the case like in Japan where there's interconnection. That means that the operators at a national level are all connected to each other. So in the case of Spain, we have Vodafone and Orange, for example. They are live together, but Movistar and MásMóvil are in the last legs of being ready. And then once the four of us are all able to interconnect our messages together, we will go yellow on this map and go live. So we're expecting that really soon. Yeah, as I say, Telefonica, we've had some really good news already this year. So Brazil and Mexico, so really great that the team have gotten it live there. And just some other pieces. I guess one, just to wrap up, RCS for business messaging. The beauty of all this is, as we think more widely about the messaging space and the customer engagement space, what we're seeing is that RCS is going to be included on the right-hand side. You can see SMS, you can see Twitter, Messenger, there's WhatsApp, RCS is in there. That as customers like ourselves interact with brands, our brands need to have a fully omni-channel experience. So I might want to start speaking with Movistar in WhatsApp, but my friend might prefer to speak with them in Messenger, and that those conversations are able to be managed across different channels between the brand and the customer. So I think we're going to see a lot more as well in terms of a trend in this omni-channel space. And brands, it's going to be hard to get this right initially, because the best way that this should work is that you could start from a web experience, but it could finish in an RCS. So that whole kind of handing over the customer between one channel to the next is also going to be really exciting over the next months. So I would love to speak about this topic a lot more. I think we've just briefly touched on messaging in general, messaging for business messaging, how business messaging has been impacted by the general messaging landscape, and then RCS, which is a big project in Telefonica that we're working hard to get more countries live. As I say, UK, Spain, and Germany pending in the rest of this year, and then the rest of the group during 2020. So I hope that was useful. I think we might have some questions, and if we don't get to answer all of them, we can always pick them up after. So I'll just check if there's any questions. Okay, so we've one that says, so why haven't carriers done this earlier? So why haven't any carriers done RCS yet? Well, that's not really 100%. So carriers have tried to get RCS up and running about 5-6 years ago. It was an initiative called Joyn, Joyn. However, it didn't work. Essentially, it didn't work. WhatsApp was just getting really strong as well, and it was very much from a peer-to-peer element. So trying to compete with the instant messengers that were coming on the scene at the time. So that one was like there was intense competition at the time why it didn't work, and another big reason why it didn't really take off was it required each of the operators had our own app that would then speak to each other's servers in the back end. So what we've tried to do this time, and with the help of Google and Samsung, and also as we have decided that their native app, Android's native Android message and Samsung RCS message, they are native within the device, and then the carriers put their server back end towards it, so that we don't that there isn't that fragmentation. So it's the expectation is that that will remove a lot of the previous challenges that we had. But that said, the beauty of there was a lot of learnings from the previous experience, and a lot of the same people that are working on RCS now are the previous gurus from 5 years ago. So that's also helping get traction with RCS this time. Just check if there's another question. Okay, great. Okay, so thanks, Marcus, for your question. Yeah, so Marcus's question is, I guess RCS would provide the brands with much more improved statistics than SMS. Yeah, exactly. It's a really good point, as Marcus is mentioning. The statistics for RCS or the results of RCS campaigns will be much higher click-through rates, higher engagement rates, higher activation rates, and we've already seen that from campaigns that have been run. I showed briefly the example of Subway, where they noticed over 50% higher engagement rates or purchase probability as well when they were with their sandwich deal. Vodafone has done some really great use cases as well, and they have statistics of up to kind of +7 times click-through rates than over the same type example in an SMS, which is really encouraging for the rest of us that are coming along. Oi, similarly in Brazil, they also launched with some really positive results on internal use cases where they were switching customers from prepaid to postpaid. They did a campaign of their own Oi customers, and that they found really positive results in using RCS as a channel to upgrade customers to postpaid. And who else? ITV in the UK as well. They've also done a lot of cases with really positive statistics. But yeah, I mean, the good thing is so far the pilots, demos, the pilots, I guess, that have been done with real brands, the results have been substantially higher, minimal, like 7+ better results than over SMS already. And we think that as we get more use cases and we get more traction, that those results will be even higher. And we will be working with the brands and the agencies to make sure that the channel is leveraged with all the opportunities that it can bring. So yeah, thanks for your question. Yeah, okay, so a question from Javier Barito. Yeah, thank you for your question as well. Yeah, I mean, for the end user, this is just going to be part of your normal data package. So as I say, it runs over IP. So when when you're getting your normal data package, it's just there as part of it. You will be able, the actual client, when you go into Android Message, you will be able to deactivate in case you will be able to take off the IP part if you don't want it to run over data, and then it can just be your SMS inbox. So the good thing is the client has that capability to switch between SMS and the RCS experience. That's what this is all about. It's trying to reduce fragmentation, make it easy. It's the same, you're going to have a messaging inbox anyway. This one can be upgraded if you like to use it and you run it over your data or your Wi-Fi. And if you don't want to, switch it off and it's just your SMS inbox. Great. Any other questions? Yeah, maybe just one other quick one before we wrap up. One other question as well is, what are some of the biggest challenges that we have for RCS? I think I touched on it briefly. I mean, so one thing is Apple. We need to make sure, hopefully, once we all get up and running with RCS as operators, that Apple also joins on board, because we want to make sure that we have a solid offer to brands that use an instant messaging type experience, a united offer, because obviously Apple has a really nice, they have their Apple Business Chat, which is a really nice user experience for brands to engage with their customers. But what we just don't want is to have fragmentation. So ideally, we'll join forces on RCS for a united business messaging proposal to brands. I think that's going to be a challenge potentially, but we'll survive it, I think, anyway. I think one of the big things that we're seeing that's a challenge, but it has a flight path and we're working towards it, is RCS works under a federated model, which means that my servers as Telefonica have to speak with Vodafones and speak with Oranges and speak with Deutsche Telekom and speak with Verizon. We all have to interconnect with each other, which is amazing. As well, what was achieved in SMS 20 years ago, but it's a challenge. And again, there's ways that some of that fragmentation or difficulty to make that work has been, it's easier now than it was, let's say, 5 years ago, but it is definitely sometimes causes some delays. It's often slow, but again, it's a challenge, but it's being achieved slowly but surely. So I think what we will do is we will finish it there. I think this LUCA talk will be available in our LUCA Talks library. And what I will do is I'm going to leave up my email address at the end. I'm going to pass back onto my last slide that I had just as we sign off. And you can take my email address. Please, if you want to contact me there, or write to LUCA and we will get back to you. So I hope that's been useful to learn a bit about RCS. It's a topic we're passionate about here. And I hope that we are all able to use RCS definitely in Telefonica's footprint within the next months, and that it becomes something that we're all become used to, like SMS in 20 years' time. So thank you for your time and for listening, and I look forward to hearing from you in the future. Thank you.